all those lights. It's amazing, boss.
It's trouble. Trust me.
I've been thinking a lot recently about our core programming. The concept has a number of different names, depending on which field's talking about them. Therapists would call them your core beliefs. In ethics, they're usually called axioms. Elsewhere, I've heard them simply called base assumptions. I am unworthy. It is good to help people. The world is dangerous. Ideas like these are the lenses we see the world through, and our other beliefs are not much more than extrapolations based on our core axioms. You may not know your core beliefs, because most people don't, but each and every sentient machine in the 2012 game Primordia does know their core belief. Every machine knows their purpose, all except the player character Horatio Nullbuilt, a machine with no builder. And whatever else he thinks he's looking for during the game, the real objective is clear from the start. Find your axiom. Primordia is a 2012 point-and-click adventure game by Wormwood Studios, set in a broken world of dying robots. The humans are gone and half-remembered, wiped out in the primordium that birthed robo-kind. We take control of Horatio, a scavenger forced into the city of Metropole to retake your power core that was stolen by a powerful excavation bot.
I don't think he's too keen on private property.
As a point-and-click game, it's a little bit outside of my wheelhouse. Doubly so since this game doesn't even have a tangential relationship to tabletop gaming, which is typically the kind of video game I cover on this channel. I stumbled across it recently after the announcement of the Kickstarter of Hibernaculum, a retro horror dungeon crawler from the same studio, which is absolutely something I intend to cover. I know that one doesn't have a tabletop connection either. I just think you guys will really like it. Anyway, looking into the devs further, I found Primordium. I wasn't intending on making a video about it, but I recorded the gameplay just in case, and that ended up being a very good call, because I actually do feel like I have a lot to say. Let's step into the ruined world of Primordia, with the knowledge that I am going to spoil the hell out of this thing. Don't fret if you're really impressed by this game. The studio has a bunch of other great games to check out as well that I will not be spoiling. Horatio Nullbuilt lives with his floating companion, Crispin Horatio Built, in a crasped ship called the Unique. Their little slice of metallic heaven has been built on scrap, hard work, and a self-sustaining power core. Unfortunately, it is not to last.
Crispin, get behind me. Who are you and what do you want?
Power.
Get away from the power core.
Forfeit.
Although we have survived the armed robbery with minimal damage, Horatio and Crispin are short on time, as they rely on this core to keep themselves charged. Stepping out into the scrap metal wastelands, the art style of this game really started to impress me. The scenes are bleak, but they're also fascinating and alien. It's hard to look at this world without questions flooding into your mind. Was this even Earth? Or are we somewhere else? We will never find out. And the ruined technology is just uncanny enough to feel as though this is more mythology than science fiction. Working together, Crispin and Horatio are able to fix up their emergency generator, but it's a temporary solution at best, with the noisy contraption set up to only last a few short weeks. The question then is what to do about it. Crispin, having heard the beacon perpetually calling out on the radio, recommends they go to the city of Metropole, where power is free for all. Horatio has reservations, though.
Or we could just take the train to Metropole and live in luxury.
First of all, there is no train to Metropole. And second, even with full charges, we can't just walk there. But more importantly, I hate that city. It's in my core logic. I don't know why, but I can't change it.
Okay.
Already, we see some differences between the two. Crispin was built by Horatio to be helpful, cooperative, and loyal. Horatio, on the other hand, is quite the enigma. We learn that he's a devout disciple of the Gospel of Man, the belief in humans as divine creators.
I get it. A big robot named Man built everything. Just no more preaching, please.
All differences aside, however, two more options are on the table. A new source of power could be found, or they could possibly track down the thief and retake the power core. Not certain which will be the better path, the pair construct an energy sensor and use their telescope to identify nearby sources of power. The first place I chose to visit was a cryptic sight, to say the least. A colossal robot buried up to his chin in the sand, its metal hands unable to get free of the hardened earth. So, naturally, the only way forward was to treat this relic of a bygone era with the respect it deserved, by cutting off its finger and shoving it up its nose to force open its cavernous mouth. Inside, we meet a pair of small robots who appear to be the fragments of the Great Titan's shattered mind. Somewhere below is a third bot who refuses to rejoin the whole. And our two little friends here, well, man, they're really going through it.
Too much data, too little memory, back incomplete, division, fragmentation, madness.
You got that right.
Fortunately, the little dudes were a little too helpful.
How can I use the elevator?
Loading key code database. Bomb detonation prefix 6.
What prefix?
Either way, the keypad is powered down, and I couldn't immediately find a way forwards. So I chose to head over to another power core site in hopes of finding a solution. And although I didn't find it, I did find a fellow humanist full of tantalizing mysteries. Ever faithful Nullbuilt is a strange warframe of some kind, and a strict adherent to the Church of Humanism. What's more, he claims to be the one who first converted Horatio to humanism many, many years ago. You see, this is apparently the 5th version of Horatio Nullbuilt. An earlier version of Horatio came here an age ago.
But I meant thy first version and thy third. Thou camest in thy infancy in wrath confusion, denouncing the shrine as a weapon once turned against thee. Later, thou returnest, penitent, and I taught thee the mysteries of humanism.
Horatio appears to have been memory wiped when he hit version 5, though he continued to worship the gospel that Ever Faithful had given him. After failing a test of faith, I am sent back to the wastes to give him a piece of pure, untainted glass as penance, before he will allow me to access the bomb that our energy sensor registered as a source of power. Getting through the wastes and solving various minor puzzles, we find ourselves back in the maw of the giant robot, eventually discovering the brain, and the peevish robot Gamma in the bowels. Eventually, he is isolated, and the Titan's mind is reborn into its original whole. It would seem that this creature, with its memory restored, was the ancient enemy of some past version of Horatio, though we have no memory of this. The Goliath repays us with a decryption device that promises to do for Horatio what we just did for Goliath, restoring our memory. Unfortunately, this does not work yet, as we find no evidence of Urbanian decryption, or whatever that means, on ourselves or our data pouch. But what's perhaps more valuable is that Goliath does not refer to us as Horatio.
Who's there?
I am Goliath, man-built. You know me, Horus.
A short time later, I discover the glass that Ever Faithful requested, and as we return, I'm left with this sickening suspicion. Did we do this? Are we Horatio, the scavenger who believes that man built us to build, or are we Horus the Destroyer, the machine that ended the world? We repent before Ever Faithful, and as one final piece of penance, he asks for our name. I tell him Horus, and he gratefully agrees that this is what we are registered as in his database. At last, he allows us to take a sacred relic from the bomb, remarking that our assailant took the other one by force. We take the other, and return to the unique to plug in our new explosive power source. Unsurprisingly, this does not end up actually working because, that's just not really how bombs work. But we do have one single remaining lead. Ever Faithful told us that the thief had fled to the dome which housed the den of inequity that the preacher himself had once escaped from. So hear me out. The dome requires a passcode, which we don't have. But we do have a bomb. I dial in the code and nothing.
Where's the kaboom? There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
Okay, well, there seems to be a fourth number that's needed in the code, and the bomb itself only had a 3-digit code written on it, and unfortunately, I am a stupid dum-dum, which is the entire reason I don't usually play point-and-click games. Don't look it up, William! Don't look it up! The bomb was shot at you! Goliath's your ancient enemy! This is Goliath's bomb! He told you! His bomb prefix is 6! William! Don't look it up! William! Inside the dome, we find a subway tunnel, and it's pretty clear that it leads to Metropole. Victory for Crispin, I guess. Everywhere there are the many scars of battle and of broken defenses. Perhaps it really was the city of the future once, but those days are long gone. A quick scan of our energy sensor reveals that all the power in the city is housed in the Great Central Tower. And since it's locked, we're gonna have to hit the streets. But before we go anywhere, there's an admission fee. 1/5 of Horatio's megacycles, his processing power, is taken to help run the city. And his Gospel of Man is stolen and thrown far into the lower levels where the city's trash piles up. It doesn't take long in Metropole until we run into a street merchant and obvious conman, Leopold Steeplebuilt. Somehow, it was this aimless grifter who built Ever Faithful Leobuilt, yet he denies it profusely.
Leopold? Hey, you didn't build a lunatic named Ever Faithful, did you?
Do I look like I'd build someone named Ever Faithful, Crispy?
We learn from him and others that the robot who stole our power core is named Scraper. And he's an excavation bot who works for Metropole's infrastructure computer turned absolute ruler, Metromind. We also learn from an info terminal that after the Primordium, which was the age in which robots were born and man disappeared, that the city was ruled by a council of 5 great machines. Metromind, however, took over, shutting the others down, isolating them, or even erasing them entirely. Arbiter, the leader of the law department, was locked behind shuttered doors. Factor, the industrial heart of the city, was powered down to preserve energy. No one knows what happened to Memorius, the Keeper of Records, nor does anyone know the identity of the 5th Counselor, or what they were in charge of. So too does the terminal erase the existence of humanity, dismissing it as superstition. And despite fearing that this kiosk may be monitored, I searched the name Horus, learning that the Horus was an ancient weapon from the city of Urbani that was sent to destroy Metropole, before being stopped by Goliath. With the citizens of Metropole so unhelpful and brainwashed by Metromind's propaganda, we pry open a manhole and descend into the city's underworks. Down below, we find a glitchy signal bot who goes by the name Primer, who rhymes all of his sentences.
Really? Don't you think you're overdoing it? I mean, that barely made sense. And it hardly rhymed.
No. Bro.
He's not much help, but he does give us a list of prime numbers to work with, and claims he's patiently waiting for his war medal to make its way back to him. Exploring the area, we find the way to the abandoned Factor facility is blocked by a strange, zombified robot. We've got no weapons to speak of, so it's best to go elsewhere. The other path down here leads to a drawbridge, and one of the prime numbers we were given is the key code to letting us cross. Crossing, however, turned out to be better as an idea than as an actual thing we do, because we soon find ourselves swarmed by the robotic husks. Fortunately, however, we are saved.
I am Clarity Arbiter Built.
Horatio? I think you may have just met the one.
Law without mercy, huh? How does that even work?
Perfectly.
Horatio, I have a request of you.
You are under no obligation to perform it, and I will be under no obligation to you, even if you do. Do you understand?
I don't even know what you're asking me to do.
Boss, she's kind of exciting my electrons.
Her name is Clarity, one of 2 robotic helpers that were built to assist Arbiter. Each was built to provide a different perspective on the law. Clarity's role was to see the law as absolute, something with no room for compromise, preference, or even practicality. Blind justice, so to speak.
Mercy is malware.
Charity is on the other side of the law, attempting to be a gentler and more tempered approach to justice. Clarity has been down here for an indeterminate amount of time, possibly decades, waiting for Arbiter to request her advice after sending her away in favor of Charity's counsel. Clarity tells us that she's been honing her combat skills defeating shells down here, which are the empty vessels of machines who traded away all their processing power to Metromind. We also learn from her that it was apparently the Urbanians who murdered humanity during the Primordium. She requests that we go back and check on Arbiter for her, though she's reluctant to establish any form of quid pro quo that could compromise her impartiality. Nevertheless, she gives us the code to enter Arbiter's courthouse, so at least we have a path forwards. And on the way, we find a welder with a floating lamp that is apparently sentient. Crispin is naturally infatuated. No, we are not doing a second one of these. One unwarranted fan cam is enough. Arriving at the courthouse, there's a line. And as you can imagine, robots are pretty stubborn about letting us budge. These robots may have been standing in this line for hundreds of years, and since we can't input the courthouse code if they're in the way, it's time to adjudicate their cases ourselves. A custody battle between 2 robots over a project they made together. Little Rex was designed by Cornelius Factorbuilt, but fabricated by Oswald Factorbuilt. Is Rex therefore Cornelius built or Oswald built? Verdict: both of these builders are Factorbuilt. Thus, the little robot shall henceforth be known as Rex Factorbuilt built. Next case, bailiff. A strange robot who sings in binary code was conned out of their engine by Leopold Steeplebuilt. Verdict: I sentence myself to go by the motor and give it back. 187, an Urbanian warbot, arrived in Metropole on foot with the last surviving members of Surly Company. Of the 200 warframes they set out with, only 3 reached Metropole. One powered down from damage shortly after arriving, and another, Primer, scrambled his own base code to avoid the trauma. In a rage, 187 shot up the council tower, before coming to his senses and surrendering as his code demands he submit to local authority. He took his place outside the courthouse and has been awaiting judgment ever since. Verdict: the damage to the tower was superficial, and the law in Metropole gives a 48-hour amnesty period to newcomers. Thus, 187 has provably committed no crime, and is thus free to go. By the way, he also let us know during all this, by the way, that the whole Urbani killed the humans thing is actually a little bit more complicated than that. Surly Company was deployed after Metropole had already killed all the humans in Urbani. But regardless, the path forward to the courthouse is now clear, and we may input the code and enter the courthouse. Rather than finding Arbiter locked away, we find him murdered. His data erased entirely, with Charity dead beside him of a gunshot wound to the head. Salvaging a packet of Charity's memories, we see the moment that Clarity was sent away. Metromind's attempts to seize power were opposed by Arbiter, and Clarity's strict adherence to law and protocol was feared to be impractical. Charity's more measured approach was chosen instead to avoid civil war. There are more memories, but we're going to need Clarity's help to decode them. Plus, we've got bigger problems. Scraper wanders in, intent on dealing with us once and for all. We sneak past easily enough, but he still catches up to us and confronts us on the street. Because my problem-solving skills are bad, I forgot that Scraper was holding a bomb that I had the detonation code for. Thus, 187 had to sacrifice himself to save me as a fellow Urbanian warbot. Rest in peace, King. You deserve better.
The company shutting down. Metromind.
Getting back down to the underworks, Clarity is livid about the death of her family. And when we decode the final memory, we understand how it came to pass. Charity, caring more about preventing civil unrest and conflict than about justice itself, accepted a file transfer from Metromind to induce Arbiter to surrender.
Your Honor.
Yes, what is it?
We must have peace.
Even you, Charity.
What have I done?
Instead, hearing Charity's advice spoken through the voice of Metromind was the final straw. Arbiter couldn't survive the betrayal of his own daughter, and he wiped his codebase forever. Unable to live with what she had done, Charity chose to follow his lead. Clarity has heard enough, and agrees to come with us to the Council Tower to bring Metromind to justice for her crimes. But first, we'll need the Council codes. And she only knows the code for Arbiter, but she does know one interesting fact that will help us move forward from here. She was alive when the Council was active, so she knows the identity of the secret Council member. Steeple Manbuilt was the founder of humanism, and the head of the Metropole Cathedral of Man. And, well, we happen to know a particular robot who claims to be Steeple-built. Unfortunately, we can't convince the shifty con man to tell us anything, so we'll have to look elsewhere for now. Fortunately, Clarity joining the party lets us get past the shell blocking the way to Factor, so we aren't out of options yet. Inside the facility, we're blocked by a pair of doors that won't open due to a rusty gear mechanism. All we can do is take the gears and leave. On the way out, we find a floating garbage patch that contains both our Gospel of Man and a beautiful golden chain. We confront Leopold with the Gospel, and it unlocks his repressed memories. When Metromind seized power, Leopold, as Steeple's disciple, was given a choice.
I could be erased like Steeple. I could be exiled to the dunes. Or I could delete all references to Steeple and Man from my memory. Two good options and one bad one. Guess which one I took.
Although he took the coward's way out, Leopold's core programming would not allow him to let the faith die. He poured his love for man into the frame of the fallen Urbanian warbot and let it set off into the wastes. A great, tireless missionary who would come to be known as ever faithful. Leopold, now remembering everything, gives us his council code and goes into hiding. Nearby, we spot Oswald Factorbuilt, taking a drink at the bar with Rex. He's upset with us for not giving him full custody, but he's at least still willing to chat. We learn that there actually used to be a third Factorbuilt brother, Lawrence, who was the favored son of their father. Lawrence was given a golden chain by their father to show his favoritism. Eventually, with Factor shut down and hard times being upon them, Lawrence traded away the golden chain to Oswald before going missing. Oswald's animosity with his brother Cornelius began when the two of them traded relics temporarily. Oswald lending the golden chain in exchange for a monocle that supposedly belonged to Memorius. Cornelius naturally lost the chain, leading to the animosity and the custody battle over Rex. After giving him the chain, we receive the monocles as thanks. The only lead we have on Memorius is that the lonely, isolated info terminal is the last remnant of the Great Record Keeper. With the monocle over our eye, the info takes a very different turn, with Memorius having hidden a fragment of himself within the code to escape Metromind. The downfall of the Council is essentially the fault of Memorius. Factor and Metromind stood on one side of the divide, with Steeple and Arbiter on the other, leaving Memorius as the sole neutral party. As a machine devoted to cold truth, they were naturally furious of Steeple being an equal member of the Council, believing the Church of Man to be little more than opinion. Memorius was easily manipulated by the tactics of Metromind, who claims to speak only truth, yet uses half-truths to tell pure, malicious lies. This was Memorius's fatal flaw, and after siding with Metromind to kick Steeple off the Council, Metromind was then free to use her power to destroy Arbiter, and then erase all of the many truths that Memorius sought to preserve. Truth destroyed by lies that knew how to masquerade themselves as fact. Before wiping themselves out to prevent Metromind from the pleasure of doing so, Memorius gives us the tower code. Now, the last counselor, Factor, took kinda some weird logic for me to figure out how to solve. It's kinda the only section where I felt like it wasn't me being dumb that was the problem. We needed two final things. We needed to make the bartender clean the gears, which I never would have thought of in a million years. And we needed to go to Clarity's base and discover that Lawrence has become a shell of Metromind, and had then been destroyed by Clarity. His severed head in hand, we have everything we need to confront Metromind's sole ally. When the doors open, Factor's proxy arrives and informs us of Factor's ultimate goal: to recycle a broken world.
When the time is right, he will awaken and cover the world with steel and wire.
Will he make me new arms?
No.
Factor knew Metromind would let Metropole crumble as she had done, and that was his plan. When the infrastructure bot had failed and the city was in ruins, Factor and his legion of children would wake up and build a new world from the ashes of the old. The plan had one single flaw. Some of Factor's children refused the call to hibernate, among them Lawrence. Upon showing his proxy the fate of Factor's favorite child, we are given Factor's council code, in hopes that we will help expedite the process of ending Metromind's flawed reign. Finally then, although our journey began simply to retake a power core, we culminate the history of all Metropole, of all the world since the Primordium, by confronting the cunning dictator. And it is here that we learn the purpose of Metromind.
What do you want, Metromind?
Progress. And you are standing in its way.
Unfortunately, it seems that 187 didn't completely destroy the hardy construction bot Scraper. Clarity stays behind to battle, but we are forced to flee, with Clarity merely hinting that we must go to Calliope Station. We search the subway and discover that the route map contains a secret button on Calliope Station that opens the way to Metromind's final core processor. And when we approach, we discover that the great processor is not as defenseless as we hoped.
It ends now, Metromind. Your game is over.
Indeed. 4 megacycles will now be redeemed. Did you really think you could outsmart me? I have more parallel processors than you have transistors. And now it's time for me to add another processor. Yours.
Boss!
Cycles.
Snap out of it, boss!
Memory.
No!
Don't embarrass yourself. You are no one. And how would you possibly stop me? You don't even have arms.
I'm not no one. I am Crispin Horatio Built version 1. I have free will and a maglev unit. And I am a floating bomb.
All is not lost. Crispin's sacrifice, although noble, is not final. We collect his memory banks and discover a second drive, dislodged from Metromind herself, the intercepted computing of Horus on the day of the war. And in Horatio's darkest moment, Crispin dead, Clarity likely the same, we confirm what we had always feared. After the people of Metropole exterminated the civilians in Urbani, the Horus had been ordered to take revenge and assault Metropole with gas weapons and powerful computer viruses, easily shattering the mind of Goliath and racing towards Metropole to slaughter the very last humans that Horatio revered. If nothing else, we return to the tower to see if Clarity survived.
All this for a besotting power core.
Indeed, it has been quite a waste.
But Metromind is not dead. She lives in the minds of every machine that ever lent her processing power. Metropole cannot be free of her, not without destroying every machine within it. The city is her hostage, but is that truly so bad? She is, after all, nothing but a computer devoted to progress. At gunpoint, she demands that we submit, fold our programming into her own, so that she might have all the perspective of Horus to pursue progress and begin a new Primordium.
Join me. and there will be endless Primordia, every day an age of creation.
Every machine in Primordia has a core purpose, an axiom upon which their worldviews are built: to progress, to assist, to preserve the truth, to reduce, reuse, recycle. These core beliefs influence everything. Mathematics, to very much oversimplify things, started with the very basics. 1 + 1 = 2. We have been extrapolating off of those basics, those mathematical axioms, for thousands of years, until now we're able to use them to prove the theoretical existence of particles and black holes. But if 1 + 1 turned out to equal 3, well, we'd have to throw all our conclusions away. An axiom, a core belief, a base assumption, your core programming, it's so important to get it right. Memorius cared about preserving the truth, but not about wielding it responsibly, and thus could not preserve it at all. Charity cared about tempering justice with prudence and mercy, and in the end gave special treatment to one who would destroy justice. And even when outcomes can look similar, the base axiom can change everything. Clarity is a very strict law and order kind of gal, right? Well, she got there through believing in justice needing to be blind. Everyone must be beholden to justice, or else no one is. There are many others who might resemble Clarity in the real world, but for different reasons. One might look and act the same without thinking that justice must be blind. There are many out there for whom the core belief that we have to find the correct group of people to hurt is enough for them to talk a big game about justice. But generally, what people with this belief bring is nothing like justice, merely the aesthetic of it, in hopes to bring down the law upon their enemies. Hurting the right people is the goal. It's not a means to a goal. How do you convince someone whose core ethical premise is that some people should suffer, or that progress must be made at all costs, that their actions are harmful or ineffective? They don't value what you value. So how do you talk them down? Simple. You don't. You just stop them. Who better to stop Metromind? To put an end to her clever lies and tyranny and decaying systems of progress than the Horus, the machine built upon a base code crafted to destroy. Except, is that really who Horatio is? It sounds nothing like the one we've seen so far.
I've watched you, and I know you, Horatio. You are compelled to fix machines, save lost robots. Now I want you to help me fix Metropole and save my people.
A scavenger who has redesigned and remodeled himself so many times and yet never built a weapon? Is he just a rebel against his own programming? Is he glitched in some way? How does a machine built to destroy come to act like this? The answer lies in the hacked Urbani processor we found earlier, because I didn't tell you everything. Horus is the equivalent of a sentient nuclear bomb, but there is a curious quirk about nukes. Maybe we don't all agree that we should build them, but all but the most war-hawkish people around agree that if we are going to build nukes, they should never be used. They are mutually assured destruction, and the nations of the world generally keep them around for the purpose of preventing those same weapons from being used against them. Horatio, Horus, is that mutually assured destruction, sent to avenge the Urbani that were butchered by the humans of Metropole. But the Horus backed down. It landed quietly in the wastes and uploaded itself to a lone servitor, settling into a peaceful life of scavenging and building. Horatio couldn't destroy humanity. How could he? He was built to protect, to stop Armageddon. And that is Horatio's core axiom. If even a sentient doomsday device couldn't do something so monstrous as killing the last humans, who could? Whose core logic was so violent that they could bring themselves to bring about the extinction of our species and to progress to a new age.
Ah. So you solved your own puzzle after all.
The humans didn't die in the war, did they?
They did, but I killed them. I admit it, and I am not ashamed. Do you know how they trembled in my tunnels, waiting for the Horus to bring death from Urbani? I could hear them whisper about the wastelands surrounding their city. I heard them say they were the only living things left. And then I knew. The humans had built a world in which they were obsolete. It was my function to carry them to their final destinations.
Metromind cannot be stopped without killing civilians. And when she says that the two of you can merge together to create a glorious new machine, how can we trust a person who has deceived and misled so many times? Once again, Metromind, like Metropole during the Primordium, has taken the world hostage. We cannot stop her without destroying everything. We can choose to do it anyway. After all, Metromind will grind this city to dust in time on her own, but I don't think that this is the choice that Horus would choose, because Horus has already made this choice once before. There is only one ending that makes sense. We spare a flawed world.
Can you fix it, Horatio?
I can't even fix the unique. This world won't be saved until man returns and formats it afresh. But as long as we still have a charge, we have to keep patching things as best we can.
Our virus bomb destroys Scraper in an instant, because we were never truly the underdog here. Metropole exists by Horus's mercy alone. And now, if nothing else, Metromind finally knows that. We take our power core and Clarity's head, and then we do the only thing we really can. Metropole will never be free of this entrenched virus that has taken hold, but there's nothing stopping the robots we met along the way from leaving. Together, we build the Horus once more, and we leave to go start something truly new. So that was Primordia. The thing I like about it is the way that it uses robotics to illustrate a remarkably complicated part of the human experience. Because humans don't just have one core belief, we've got a bunch. And we also don't know what most of our core beliefs are, we just kind of act on them. They inform our decisions, but we don't think about it. But reducing the robots to mainly one core axiom and making them well aware of their axiom, I think it's a great way to introduce people to the concept. I hope this video has inspired a few people to, give it some thought. What are your core beliefs? They're important to know because, unlike robots, we can change ours. It's hard, it's not easy, but you can do it. If you enjoyed this video and you want to show your support, please consider signing up on Patreon, because you guys have no idea how much that helps. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.